This is the fractions and decimals pretest. Okay, what fraction of the rectangle is shaded? We've got how many out of how many? 4 out of 10. Girls, you need to simplify that fraction. If they're both even, we can divide the top and the bottom both by 2 and we get 2 over 5. Bella had 12 lollies. Tina ate 1/4 of them. Girls, if you want to find a quarter, you halve it and you halve it again. So half of them is that, and 1/4 of them is how many? Girls? 3. If you want 1/4, you halve it and you halve it again. Tina ate 3 lollies, or you could have done 1/4 of 12 is 3. But with this one, girls, you can just see it in the picture. How many lollies did Bella have left if 3 are eaten? There are 12 minus 3, which equals 9. Girls, obviously we start on lower level questions, level 1. Write the following as a decimal. I've got 5 in the whole number place, 3 in the tenths. Remember, we've got units, decimal place, tenths, hundredths, thousandths. So it's 5.3 in the tenths, 5 is in the hundredths column, and 8 is in the thousandths column. 5.358. What is the value of 7, the digit 7 in each of the following? That 7 is 374. What is that 7? It's worth 70. So the value of it is 70. Or you could say 7 lots of tens. 7 times 10. Does that make sense? It's in the tens column. You say it and you say 374. The 7 is worth 70. Girls, this is different. That's the units, that's the tenths, that's the hundredths, that's the ones. The 0 is in the ones. The 9 is in the tens column. We got the decimal point. We got tenths and we got hundredths. So what's the value of the 7 there? Girls, what's the value of that 7? 700. 700. 7 over 100. Or 7 times 100. So girls, just write its actual value. The first one's worth 70, its value. The second one is 700. The next question, fill in the 2 missing values to complete these equivalent fractions. How do you go from 2 to 8? Times what? How do you go from 2 to 8? Times 4. To go from 2 to 8, we times by 4. So we go, whatever you do to the numerator, you must do to the denominator when multiplying. 2 times 4 is 8. 3 times 4 is 12. Now, how do you think they're getting from 12 to 6? We never minus. Whenever you're working with equivalent fractions, it's multiplying or dividing. So how do you think we're going from 12 to 6? Dividing by 2. So we're going to divide this one also by 2. And 8 divided by 2 is 4. Okay, so girls, there were 2 ways of doing this. I could go 2 times 4 is 8, so 3 times 4 is 12. The other way I could have done it was to ignore the 8 over 12. So I'm going to cover it. Girls, there's another way. If I want to go straight from 3 to 6, how would I do that? Straight from 3 to 6. Times by what? 2. So to go from 2 to 4, 2, sorry. So 3 times 2 is 6, so 2 times 2 is 4. That was the other way to do it. Okay, over the page. Which diagram does not have 3/4 shaded? Girls, the main thing is all the sizes have to be the same of the pieces. Does this have all same sizes? That's good. That's 3/4. What about B? Is that 3/4? How many is this? 1, 2, 3, 4. This is 6 out of 8, which is how many? Girls, 6 out of 8. Simplify, please. Divide them both by 2. No. Girls, if 6 over 8, they're both even. How do you simplify 6 over 8? It's 3 over 4. Girls, look. 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces. 3 out of the 4 is shaded. 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces. 3 out of the 4 are shaded. So girls, the second one is 3/4. What about the last one? How many are shaded? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This is 9 out of how many? Can you simplify that? Divide them both by what? And what do you get? 9 divided by 3 is? So that is 3/4. So it must be the last one. How many are shaded? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 out of 16. So 11 out of 16 is shaded. That is not 3/4. Okay? You can't divide both those numbers by something. The answer's E. Okay, next question. Change 2 3/4 to an improper fraction. Girls, those 2 wholes, how many pieces are in each of those 2? So you've got 2 wholes and 3/4. How many pieces is it telling me to cut? Everything's cut up into 4s. 2 wholes and, so 8 and my 3/4. So what do I have? That, and 3/4. How many pieces, girls? 11 over 4. Who knows the easier and quicker way to do this?
2 times 4.
Yep.
And the answer plus 3.
That's right, girls. The quickest way to do it is my 2 wholes are cut into 4 pieces. So those 2 wholes are 2 times 4, 8 pieces, plus the extra 3 there. I've got 2 times 4, 8 plus 3 is 11, 11/4. Now, girls, we're going to do the same thing with 15 over 2. Girls, 15 over 2 means 15 divided by 2, or it means how many times does 2 go into 15? So, girls, how many times does 2 go into 15? How many times does 2 go into 15? 7. Any remainders? 1 over 2. Girls, 15 over 2. 2 goes into 15 7 times, 1 remainder over 2. Round the following to the nearest tenth. The tenths column is where the 1 is. So I'm allowed to have 4 point and only one more number. So girls, is it going to be 4.1 or 4.2? Girls, 4.1. If I want to round it to the nearest tenth is just rounding to 1 decimal place. You have to round it to the tenths column. So I look at the number after the tenths column, which is a 3, and that 3 is less than 5. So the 1 stays the same. The next bit, round that number 4.1394 to 2 decimal places. So I'm going to have 4 point and I need 2 numbers. So does the 1 will stay the same, but the 3, does it stay as a 3? It becomes a 4 because after the 3 is a 9, which is 5 or more. 4.14. Decimal places are after the decimal point. When you see a number with a decimal point, the bits in front are the whole number and the bits after the decimal point are decimal places. They're the decimal part of the number, is after the point. So if you want 2 decimal places, you're allowed to only have 2 numbers after the point. So it's going to be 1, 1, 3 or 1, 4. Well, you need to see what's after the 3 and it's a 9. That means the 3 goes up to a 4. Girls, 0.48. How many digits after the decimal point? All right, the 4 is in the tenths column. The 8 is in the hundredths column. So because you've got tenths, hundredths, or because you've got 2 digits after the decimal point, this fraction, is it over 10, over 100, or over 1,000? Girls, the 4 is in the tenths column. The 8 is in the hundredths column. So this fraction is in hundredths. It goes up to the hundredths place. Girls, what's my answer? What do I write? You write the number 48 over 100. So to convert a decimal to a fraction, you just write the decimal bit without the point, and the 4 is in the tenths column, the 8 is in the hundredths column, so it's 48 over 100. Or you say, I've got 2 digits after the decimal point, so therefore it goes over 100 because that's got 2 zeros, which means hundredths column. 2 digits after the decimal point, tenths, hundredths, means you're working in hundredths. So we've got 48 hundredths. Girls, how do you change 3/4 to a decimal? It's a common fraction. What's a half as a decimal? What's a quarter as a decimal? 0.25. So what's 3/4? 7/5. If you're not sure what to do, you would go like this. Shh. You could say, how am I going to make that fraction out of 100? 4 times 25 is 100. 3 times 25 is 75. That's harder. Girls, you should know your basic fractions. We did a whole table of them in class, that a half is 0.5, a quarter is 0.25, 3/4 is 0.75. Okay, simplify 15 over 20. Girls, which times tables are 15 and 20 both in? So divide them both by 5. What do you get? 3 over 4. Next question, question 12. Write the following as recurring decimals. 0.3. What do I do, girls? Good. The next one. Tell me what's repeating. 34 point. Is the 3 repeating?
217.
The 7 2 1s are repeating. The 7 2 1. So I keep the 3 and then I go 7 2 1. Now I put the dot on the 7 and on the 1. Or I can go like this. 34.3721. Sometimes they put a line over the repeating ones. That's another way to do it, but you just put a dot over the first and the last repeating. You don't have to put it over the 7, 2 and 1. Girls, you don't put it over the 3. About this question, if I said to you 10 divided by 2, you'd tell me 5. That's how many 2's go into 10. 4 divided by quarter, how many quarters go into 4 holes? What do I do to these bars? What do I break them up into? Into quarters. So each one hole can be broken up into how many quarters? Girls, can you see why 4 divided by a quarter is 16? Because I end up with 16 pieces. So I've got 4 holes and I break them up into quarters and I see how many quarters go into 16. And I can see in each one I've got 4 pieces, 4 quarters, 4 quarters, 4 quarters. Total of 16 quarters. Next question. Place each number on the number line below. Girls, let's do 2.5 first. Where should that be? Exactly halfway between what and what? So that's halfway. So this one there is 2.5. All right, the next one we'll do is 3/4. Where is that? Between which 2 numbers? Girls, that's less than 1 whole. So it's between 0 and 1. Quarters means it's broken up into 4 pieces. Watching. 1 quarter, 2 quarters, 3 quarters, 4 quarters. I'll make this bigger. Between 0 and 1, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 jumps. Where is 3/4? It's definitely more than halfway. That's a half. It's the next one. That's 3/4. So girls, it's less than 1 whole. It's less than 1 whole. What about -1 and a quarter? Who thinks it goes here? Girls, is it more than -1? Look, -1, -2. Where do you think -1.5 is? Between -1 and 2, that's -1.5. Where my pen is. Where's -1 1/4? Do I jump this way or that way? That one? Girls, look, -1, -1 1/4, 1.5, 1 3/4, -2. -2 1/4, 2.5, 2 3/4, 3. So girls, it's here. Negative 1 1/4 is there. Are there. So I'm not sure if I recorded this. I've got negative 1, negative 1 1/4, negative 1 1/2, negative 1 3/4, negative 2. So that's negative 1 1/4. How many thirds are in two holes? We're going to do this two ways, using diagrams and with algorithms. So I've got two holes, cut them up into thirds. Girls, how many thirds are there in two holes? Or you can go like this, 2 divided by a third. How many thirds go into 2? How do I divide by a third? I go 2, keep, change, flip. 2 what? Times 3 over 1. So girls, that's 2 over 1 times 3 over 1 is 6 over 1, which is 6. So girls, that question, you can start off with two holes and break them up into thirds. Girls, write a number that lies between 3.30 and 3.31. Girls, if you just get rid of the 3's, you got 30 and 31. There is no number halfway between. So this is what we're going to do. 3.30, 3.31. What can I add to the ends? What can I add to the ends? 0. 0. Adding 0 to the end of a decimal does not change its value. So girls, give me any number in between here. You can think, I know it's 3.300, 3.310, but just read the numbers after the point as whole numbers. 300 and 310. Give me any number between. That's exactly halfway between. I could go 3.305. What else could I do? 3.301, 3.302. If you cover those, it's like you've got 300 and 310. So you could do any of the following: 3.301, 3.302, 3.303, 3.304, all the way up to 3.309. Any of those. We chose the number exactly halfway between. So the key is to add the extra 0 onto the ends. Sort of cover up the whole number bit, and then you're looking for numbers sort of between 300 and 310. Okay, write the following in ascending order. Girls, at the moment, girls, you can use common sense with this, or you can change them all to fractions if you want, but I would use common sense with this because it's only worth 1 mark. Girls, what do you think's bigger, a third or a half? All right, tell me, let's look at, no, not a half, a third or 2/5. Girls, a third is, I'm going to double or times both of these, is 2 over 6. Girls, what's bigger? If I cut a pizza into 5 pieces and I give you 2, if I've got a pizza cut into 5 pieces and I give you 2, now a third is the same as 2 over 6. Or if I've got a pizza cut into 6 pieces and I give you 2, which pieces are bigger? Which pieces are bigger? What do you think's bigger? 2/5 or a third? Girls, if I cut a pizza up into 5 pieces, or if I cut a pizza up into 6 pieces, which pieces are bigger? The one cut up into 5s or the one cut up into 6s? They're bigger. So 2 of those pieces will be more than 2 of these pieces. So 2/5 is bigger than 1/3. So 1/3, girls, this is a pretty tricky question. Girls, do you know what 1/3 is as a decimal or as a percentage? All right. A third is 0.3 recurring. It means it's 0.333. It just keeps going on. So what's bigger? A third, 0.333, or 0.34? Anyone? Yeah, 0.34 is bigger. So the smallest is a third. Then it's 0.34. Now, 2/5. Girls, do you know what 2/5 is as a... Do you know what 1/5 is? If I've got my hand, 5 fingers, and it's... Does anyone know what 1/5 is as a decimal? 0.2. So, girls, if I've got my hand, watch, 5 fingers on my hand, right? This hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1 whole. 0.2, 0.4, 0.6, 0.8, 1. If I've got 10 fingers, I've got tenths, or I go 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5, 0.6, 0.7, 0.8, 0.9, 1. If I've got one hand, 1 whole broken up into 5 parts, each part is 0.2. 0.2, 0.4, 0.6, 0.8, 1. So 2/5 is 0.4. 2/5 is 0.4. 1/3 is 0.3 recurring. So the order going up is a third, 0.34, and 2/5. A third, 0.34, and 2/5. Shh. Keep the decimal points underneath each other, 5.79. When multiplying by 100, you move the decimal place 2 places to the right, you get 235. When you're dividing by 10, you move the decimal place 1 back, and you get 4.723. To times by a half, you times without any decimal points. You do 322 times 5, you get 10. 2 times 5 is 10, carry the 1. 5 times 2 is 10, carry the 1. Plus 1, sorry, you get 11, carry the 1. 5 times 3 is 15, plus 1 is 16. How many decimal places in the question? How many decimal places in the answer? 3. The answer is 1.610. The next question. That divided by 3 means 3 into 5.43. 3 goes into 5 once. Put the decimal point to remainder. 3 goes into 5 once, to remainder, decimal point. 3 goes into 24 8 times, no remainder. 3 goes into 3 once. Girls, we don't like to divide by decimals. So 1.2 divided by 0.6, I'm going to change it and move each of those decimal places 1 place to the right. That is the same as doing 12 divided by 6. So girls, we don't like to divide by decimals. So we move the decimal place 1 to the right and 1 to the right. 12 divided by 6 is 2. That's what the question becomes. Name. Adding and subtracting fractions. When the denominators are the same, you can just add the numerators. So 3/8 plus 2/8 is 5/8. With the next question, the denominators are not the same. So you have to think, what denominator can I make the 4 and 10? What's the lowest common denominator? What number does 4 and 10 both go into? Well, they both go into 20. So I'm going to make my lowest common denominator equal to 20. So to make this one 20, I'll times by 5. So I times that by 5. And I get 15 over 20. And to change this one into 20, I times by 2 and times by 2. So I get 14 over 20. So now that the denominators are the same, 15 over 20 minus 14 over 20 is 1 over 20. The other way you could have done this was to do them separately and work out your denominators of 20 down here and go 4 times 5 is 20, 3 times 5 is 15. And here as well, 10 times 2 is 20, 7 times 2 is 14. Now, with multiplying fractions, it's nice and easy. Just multiply the numerators, multiply the denominators. 5 times 3 is 15. 8 times 5 is 40. You need to check if you can simplify your fraction or not. Which times tables are both 15 and 40 in? They're both in the 5 times tables. So divide by 5, divide by 5. 15 divided by 5 is 3. And 40 divided by 5 is 8. Now, knowing that we could cancel there, there is actually an easier way of doing this. Before multiplying, we should check and see if we can do any cancelling. Now we know that the fives can cancel, so 5 goes into 5 once, 5 goes into 5 once. So instead of doing it that way there, we could have just done 1 times 3 is 3, and 8 times 1 is 8. So you should always check for cancelling before multiplying fractions. Now in this last question here, we're trying to multiply fractions, but we clearly do not have a numerator and a denominator there in our mixed numeral. We've got a whole number part and a fraction part. So we need to make this look like a normal fraction, not a mixed number. So we go 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1 is 3. So we've got 3 halves, or 3 over 2, times 5 over 8. Before we multiply numerators and denominators, let's check for any cancelling. We cannot cancel between the 3 and the 8 or the 5 and the 2. So 3 times 5 is 15, 2 times 8 is 16. In the next question, we're dividing fractions. Remember the rule, keep, change, flip. Keep the first fraction, change the divide to a times, and flip the second fraction. This becomes like a multiplication problem. So 1 times 7 is 7, 8 times 6 is 48. We of course checked that we couldn't do any cancelling between the 7 and the 8 or the 1 and the 6. So we also can't cancel anything with the 7 and the 48. With the last question here, I've got 0.25 plus 4/5. Now 0.25 is a common fraction. You should recognise that to be 1/4 plus, and we've got 4/5. We need to make a common denominator, and the easiest thing here is 4 times 5 is 20. That's my lowest common denominator. So we're going to be multiplying this fraction by 5s, and this fraction is going to be multiplied by 4s to give me a denominator of 20 for each fraction. 4 times 5 is 20, 1 times 5 is 5, plus, again, 5 times 4 is 20, 4 times 4 is 16. So this becomes 5 over 20. When did that happen, girls? So first fraction, 5 over 20 plus 16 over 20. That's, denominators are the same, just add the numerators. 21 over 20. That's an improper fraction. 20 goes into 21 once with 1 remainder out of 20. Question 20. Express each of the following as a simplified fraction. If you've got $4 out of 32, you've just got 4 out of 32, so 4 over 32. Those numbers are both in the 4 times tables, so you can divide them both by 4. 4 divided by 4 is 1. 32 divided by 4 is 8. Now with the second question, we've got 15 minutes of an hour. The units are different. 1 hour is 60 minutes. So we've got 15 minutes out of 60 minutes. So those units are the same. So we've just got 15 out of 60. Now girls, you should know that to be 1/4 of an hour. So, or you can just divide them both by 15. But it's easier for you to know that 15 minutes is 1/4 of an hour. Now, just for the last 2 questions here. This question here, write 7/8 as a decimal. This is clearly less than 1 whole. This means you do 7 divided by 8, or how many times does 8 go into 7? So we go 8 into 7. Now, we need to put the 7 as 7.000, just a few zeros there. So does 8 go into 7? No. So put a 0, and there's your decimal point. Carry this 7 over here. Does 8 go into 70? Yes, it does. 8 8s are 64, so we've got 6 remainder. Does 8 go into 60? Yes, it does. 8 7s are 56 with 4 remainder. And does 8 go into 40? Yes, it does. It goes in exactly 5 times. So your answer is 0.875. Now for the last question. It says if 18.5 times 4.85 is 89.725, so girls, normally when you do this type of question, you would multiply without the decimal point, but we're not going to make you do that. They've given you the answer. So if you were to multiply these 2 numbers, you would get 89725. But what you've got to look for is how many digits after the decimal point. So we've got 1, 2, 3 digits after the decimal point. Notice we've got 3 digits after the decimal point there. So if I ask you to work this out, the numbers are exactly the same. So if you were to do it without a calculator, you'd do 185 times 485. Well, that's already done. But we have to count how many digits after the point, and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 digits after the point. So your answer needs to have 1, 2, 3, 4 digits after the point. So your answer is 8.9725. That's the end of the pretest answers.